Live from One SEO, it's taking control.
All right, welcome back everybody to episode 60 of Taking Control, the big 6-0. I'm Anthony Kane, Director of SEO here at One SEO. I'm joined by our President of IT, Scott Fcasni. Scott, first and foremost, thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you. This is twice now in a month. I
feel
great. I'm happy.
We've been ramping it up a little bit. That's pretty funny, and you are an incredibly busy person. So I know it's great to have you on because I know how frequent you're in and out of the office. You're in and out of meetings. So we appreciate you taking the time to come on the show and share some wisdom.
I'm glad to be here. You just got to make sure you hunt me down and get me on here more often.
That's right. We will definitely have you on a few more times before we hit 100. We have a great episode. And the reason why Scott's on this week is because we're going to be really diving into the IT side of things. Obviously, it's 2018. Our information is pretty much everywhere, no matter what. And just some of the bigger trends that are really happening with not only cybersecurity, but just technology and the way we use our technology and the way we access technology at work. It's really kind of evolved over the last few years. And
changes every year.
Yeah, every month. But we're excited to get your insight. I think it's going to be great. And before we jump into that, though, Scott, as you know, the tech side of the company is growing pretty rapidly. Your team is growing rapidly. I feel like every other week there's a new tech in here for you guys. With that being said, you guys are still hiring. You are still looking for new techs to join the team. Can you speak to that a little bit and what type of talent you're looking for there?
Yeah, we're hiring a few different ranges of tech skills, and we're also looking for additional people to join our sales team. On the sales side, we're looking for more people that have experience in selling technology, people that are familiar with technology and understand the sales process. In terms of IT, whether you're just getting into IT and you have basic knowledge of setting up maybe printers and making computers run faster, all the way up to senior network engineers that are have the ability to design complex environments, please apply on our website. You can either apply at OneSEO or oneseotech.com. We'll reach out to you and see if your skills are a match what we're looking for. We're constantly hiring. If we're not hiring for your position right now, get your resume in and we keep it on file, and we may be hiring in just a few months for that exact same position. Like Anthony mentioned, we're probably bringing on a new person every 2 to 3 weeks on average right now.
Yeah, and Scott mentioned that rolling application process. Certainly take advantage of that. If there's something that you think would be a good fit, the tech side is a great group of people, good culture over there. They, obviously are always helping each other out, but they're also really hardworking. You can always tell. So I think Scott takes great pride in that. But yeah, definitely take advantage of that. If there's something that you think would be a good fit, fill out an application. Scott and the team would love to meet you and show you around the office pretty much.
Definitely.
All right. Well, Scott and I have some great stuff to get into regarding the tech side of things, and I'm really excited to pick Scott's brain on a few different pieces as well. But before we do that, we're actually going to pass it over to the whiteboard segment, which is you this week, Scott. Is that correct?
I'm on the whiteboard segment too. Wow,
you're all
2
over
for
the
1.
place. So you'll have to run over to the whiteboard segment, but we will be right back after Scott takes it away on the whiteboard. So
I'll see you back in a few minutes.
That's right.
Welcome to this week's whiteboard segment. A lot of business owners will come to us and say, I want to start to get my network done right, and they don't know where to start. This is where this week's whiteboard comes into play. Basic general network topology to make sure that your network's set up right to begin with. You always start with your ISP. Where does your internet come from? For example, is it Comcast? Is it Cablevision? Is it Verizon? They're going to likely give you some kind of modem or router that's going to bring that internet in. The next step, which is one of the most commonly overlooked pieces of hardware in any network environment, is your firewall. If you don't have a firewall that protects your computers inside of your network from outside intrusions, your network is pretty much going to be wide open. You want to make sure that you're not counting on whatever Verizon or Comcast gives you to make sure that they're keeping you protected. They're not. This device is set up for the exact same way for hundreds of millions of customers. You want to have your own firewall with your own settings all set up just for your device. After your firewall comes your switch. Your switch is where all of your devices plug into. Maybe your servers, maybe your wireless access points, maybe your computers. But it all goes into this one device. Plugged into your switch, like I mentioned, your wireless access points. Some of your computers might connect back wirelessly to get to your server. Some of your computers might be hardwired to get to your server. Your hardwired devices are going to be much faster than your wired devices. So then your wireless devices, sorry. So you want to make sure as many of your devices as possible are hardwired into your network. Your server sits right in line with everything else, but you need to make sure you configure your server properly so that only the right users have access. I know this was really quick and a lot of information to absorb, but it's a quick overview of how your network should be set up.
Hi, I'm Lance Bachman, president of One SEO. This week we're going to be doing digital speaking instead of technologically speaking, which clearly I'm from Northeast Philly with a slur, but that's okay. I got my great son right here, LJ! No! Bachman, who thinks he's funny. So the one question we still get all the time as we talk about visual and voice search is about rankings. And my son here, LJ, is going to be 5 here on August 29th, and he's happy and excited. LJ, I got a quick question for you. Are there rankings anymore?
No.
So you know there's not rankings? And you're not even 5 yet? Oh my God. So you're the business owners, you gotta think about this. Why your site relevancy is very important to drive the right traffic and the right people to it. There are no more rankings because of things like personalization, things like beautiful images of your children, things like voice search and visual search. Rankings are dead, they're gone. You want to make sure you're looking at your site relevancy on all its authoritative page. Make sure you're driving the right traffic and it's converting. Do not get lost up in the ranking wars or you're going to be left behind. I promise you that. LJ, are there rankings?
Nope.
Uh-oh, even he knows. Good job, buddy. With visual search and voice search, we know that you can communicate better to your potential customers, whether it be service-based or retailers. They're getting a better experience, which means better conversions for you, more dollars, better on your leads and your advertising dollars. The reason why it's so important that we're discussing this today is by 2020, 2021, voice search and visual search is going to be growing even further and be a bigger percentage. And we know from what research looks like, about 70% of the people out there are not even preparing for it. That is not good. It's not good at all. So my message to you is this. If you have a site, make sure your site is built for voice search. Use schema markup. Make sure you're doing all these things, FAQs, to give people those better experiences. Visually, Google Images. Make sure you have the right alt tags. Make sure you have your CATs correctly. Make sure you're putting it out there and not using just regular stock photos for people. Make sure you have custom photos. Make sure you have all the files set up correctly. Make sure you explain what they are. Have your good photos on good pages of your site. You want to give the end user an incredible experience when they either come to your site, voice, or visual, that they convert into not just a lead if you're a service-based business, but the experiences that you're already the proven choice to go with. If you're a retail e-commerce and you're selling a product, you want to make sure that they go all the way through the checkout because you give them a great experience through that process. If you have any questions about voice and visual search, please reach out to us right away. It's also known as Sensory Search. We look forward to talking to you. LJ, how was it?
Great job, Dad.
All right, did everybody learn something?
No.
All right, good job. We'll see you soon. Say bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, BJ Berge here, Rachel Lawler. We're back with the Digital Buzz. Let's get right to it. First up on the list, Netflix. What are they doing? They're testing something right now.
Yep, so Netflix is testing mid-episode videos and ads for other shows, but only on Netflix originals.
Yeah, so Netflix wants to expose you to their other Netflix series. And let's be real, if you're anything like me, you're sitting there going through the Netflix list and 2 hours go by and you're watching the previews of every Netflix original to see if it interests you.
Or you can be like me and watch the same show over and over and over and over again. Anyway, that being said, Reddit and Twitter was not about this change, not about this test whatsoever.
Internet's very vocal when they don't like something, and you're the first to hear about it because the internet is just one big gossip circle. With that being said, Netflix really wants to test the waters and find out if they can get other people based on their interests and likes. No, they're different than they pitch you once when you log into Netflix, but get ads for those videos inside things you're already watching. So you might have been on your 3rd, 4th run of The Office, the full 12 seasons, 13 seasons, whatever it is, but they want to start to show you other ads for things. So we'll see if this sticks. I think it's a test is what Netflix is calling it, so they can write it off. But I don't see this.
I think it's gonna fail. I pay for Netflix to not watch commercials of the hair.
Yeah, it's a luxury that if you take away from somebody, next thing you know, it becomes not what you originally signed up for. So don't see it sticking around, but I'd be interested to see if it does develop, right?
Absolutely.
So second up on the list, a company you may have never heard of overseas in India, I believe, right?
Yep.
Flipkart. So Flipkart is a major e-commerce website. maybe closer to that of something like Wish or Alibaba, not necessarily Amazon levels, but Walmart actually bought them. This is huge.
Absolutely. I think this is a way for Walmart to once again compete with Amazon. It all started with website change, and now we're just growing from here. So Walmart is really doing their best. I think it was 16 million?
Yeah, it's up there.
So it was a lot of money, but they are going to every length to try to beat the competition to then take up more space online. Good move, bad move, will it be influential?
We have to think about it. So Walmart is doing what Amazon did backwards, right? They had all the brick and mortar places and then started growing and growing online. Amazon started online and then is starting to create the brick and mortar with the Whole Foods acquisitions and all the great stuff they're doing. With that being said, go to walmart.com, check it out. It's a lot different than you probably think of Walmart. It's redeveloped. If you go and start shopping and looking for men's shirts, you're actually going to get men's shirts from not just Walmart or what's in store at Walmart or walmart.com. It's going to be other sellers. So they actually have other sellers on their website. This is a good move on Walmart's part because they're going to start to spread their reach globally. Be interesting to see what this leads to. Does it directly compete with Amazon? They're getting there. It'll be interesting to see how this develops.
Absolutely. Like you can't beat them, join them.
And speaking of can't beating them, Fitbit. Great company, started with their fitness trackers, which was huge. I'm sure that they see huge growth in the January, February, the change of the new year. But as of lately, they're coming late to the party.
Absolutely.
Can't compete with the Apple Watch, these Samsung Fitness ones. They just do more.
So Fitbit is trying to become categorized as a smartwatch, but as BJ said, they just can't keep up. So I unfortunately think this is gonna...
Yeah, with the release of their Charge 3, basically Fitbit is trying to come to the market with what they're deeming to be a smartwatch and a fitness tracker at the same time. Will it compete, like I said, with, I think Google's putting out a new Pixel Watch. I think Samsung redeveloped their smartwatch line, and Apple is only going to continue to release different generations of their Apple Watch. With that all being said, does this put a premium on each of the devices from Fitbit? We'll have to wait and see as it isn't released yet. But I think patrons and customers and stuff are going to want to take that money and allocate it to something nicer and something they know.
Like an Apple Watch or etc. that can count your fitness and then do other things.
And you had mentioned off camera before that Android plays with Android and Apple plays with Apple. Fitbit's the oddball out here. They'll play with both of them, but they are the third party kind of trying to keep control of the space. I do think their lower price point stuff is where they need to shine. They have the tiny dongles that track, your steps and everything, heart rate and all that good stuff. But as they start to develop more new technology and it does come at a higher price, it's going to be a gamble. So I don't feel good about it. What about you?
I mean, I don't have a Fitbit nor an Apple Watch or anything, so I feel like I'm kind of obtuse here. But I mean, it just can't compete. And as we've seen with like GameStop and all the like blockbuster things. Like if you're not keeping up, it's tanking.
All right. Well, guys, that'll do it for the Digital Buzz today. I'm gonna have to take Rachel to shopping. It is 2018. We need to get her some tech. On that note, see you later.
All right, and we are back. So, Scott, thank you for your time at the whiteboard. Thank you to Lance and LJ, a special guest this week on Digitally Speaking, a little twist on the Technologically Speaking segment. And then thank you again to Rachel and BJ for the Digital Buzz. So that brings us back to the desk to kind of round out this episode and get into really the crux of what we wanted to talk about. And Scott, I'm going to start off with a recent study that I shared with you a little bit ago, and we were looking at it. And it shocked me, and your reaction was a little bit different than mine. I think that's just because you're in the industry and you've been around it. But there was a statistic that came out that said 90% of all e-commerce login attempts. So you go to log into Amazon or you go to log into Macy's.com. 90% of all of those login attempts were hackers trying to guess username and password combinations. It was 91%, I think. So to me, I thought that was ridiculously high. I mean, e-commerce websites get millions of visits a month, so it just seemed shocking to me. But then you kind of broke it down a little bit, and it made a little bit more sense. So
yeah, I wasn't all that surprised at all. You got to remember, there's a lot more e-commerce sites out there than the big behemoth Amazon out there. So a lot of these hackers are going to be trying to guess your passwords. And by the way, while we're talking now, all these passwords you see scrolling across the bottom of the screen are the most common passwords that people use, whether it's for your Amazon account, your eBay account, whatever it may be. And if you use these passwords, or maybe you think you're safe because you put an exclamation point at the end of it, guess what? Everyone else puts an exclamation point at the end of it too. So adding a special character at the end doesn't make it any more safe.
If you see it, pause the episode.
Yeah.
We'll still be here. Pause the episode and go change it.
But I'm not surprised. And maybe they're not trying to guess your password for Amazon or another e-commerce site just for the purpose of getting into Amazon. Because Amazon and these other e-commerce sites have ways of tracking where you're logging in from and see if it's a routine behavior. But maybe they're using these other platforms as their stepping stone to get into your bank. Because there's a good chance that if you have a password on Amazon or eBay, a common, more readily accessible platform, you use that same password or a variation of it for Bank of America, TD Bank, Centric Bank, whoever bank you use. So I wasn't surprised at all. Like I said, I don't think they're trying to log in and buy something to be shipped to their house.
TV,
I think they're logging in to try to figure out what passwords you use to then use that to maybe get into your email. And then once they have access to your email, they're going to see that maybe you applied for a loan 6 months ago, and they're going to get a copy of your credit report and all of your social security information, your bank account numbers. Now they know where you bank. Now they're going to try to log into your bank account. Now they know where your mortgage is. Now they know your home address, your kids' names, if you have your kids' report cards sent to you. So all they're trying to do is piece together the puzzles of your life so they can then possibly steal your identity, or even worse, steal your money. There's a lot of really great apps out there now that will help you monitor this. Yeah. I mean, the one I use is Credit Karma. Credit Karma, it's a free app. It gives you your credit score. I don't think I even care about the number. What I really like about Credit Karma is that it gives you alerts and lets you know a new account was opened. It will say maybe a new Ford line of credit was opened up. Well, guess what? If you didn't just buy a Ford car, you probably want to reach out to Ford and say, here's my social security number. It says that I opened up a line of credit, but I really didn't.
No, that's actually, it's pretty scary when you break down how it's really just a foot in the door, and they run these scripts or these automations to kind of check all these different variations of passwords and usernames. And like you said, they probably start with the most common and kind of work from there. And it is pretty eye-opening when you think about what damage can be done once they do get a piece of that information. Because from there, it's just stringing everything together.
And a lot of times why they start with these smaller e-commerce sites is that you ever notice you go to log into your bank and you guess your password wrong twice or 3 times, it locks you out. Doesn't really give the hacker or whoever's trying to get into your account many opportunities to get into your account. But these smaller sites, they're going to let you try 20, 30, even 40, 50 times before locking you out, if they ever lock you out.
Right.
So that's why they're going to try to guess your password on the easier platforms first before moving ahead with the more important ones.
Yep. So that's why 91% for e-commerce. Following that was 60% of login attempts for airlines, which I thought was interesting. Then consumer banking at 58%, followed by hotels at 44%. So it was interesting.
I'm actually surprised consumer banking's that high. They have such good protection when you go to log in. Like, it gets locked out all the time. I'll forget my password and I'll go to type it in, and I'll even get locked out. And then you have to get the text message and type in all your security questions, and you forget whether you really put your mother's maiden name or you put your fake mother's maiden name so that no one can ever guess it. Maybe I'm just a little paranoid on security. I don't know.
Well, I mean, so speaking of like security, there's been, it feels like every other month there's a sort of a bigger data breach. When you look at like 2018, Panera, Under Armour, like some of the bigger companies that everybody would know. And one of the things that I thought was interesting was just sort of the process, because it is so much data. So say a big company gets hacked, it's got millions of consumers or customers. The process to figure out, A, that they officially did get breached, B, who all was affected, and then kind of C, like, when do they let everybody know type thing. I thought that was interesting that, like, you technically could be a victim of a breach and not know about it for maybe a year or for a year and a half, just because you kind of mentioned it before, but there's just so much data there that they kind of have to go through, and so many things that, so many T's that they have to cross pretty much to figure out what actually happened and then really who got affected. So
yeah, I think the only thing worse than a company announcing that they were breached was announcing they were breached without having all the whys and what was breached behind it. So I think that's part of the reason why it takes a year, 6 months, 18 months to get that information. just to go through the logs and try to figure out what was taken, what might have been taken, how long was it taken, did they steal the encrypted social security number, or did they also steal the decryption key with it to get the actual social security number if they breached credit card information? Then they have to notify all the credit card companies, provide credit monitoring for all these people.
Right.
So that alone, the process takes months and months. And the bigger the company, a lot of times they get the FBI involved to help aid in this search. But the company doesn't usually jump right on getting help until they know 100% certain that they were really breached and data was actually taken.
Right. And that kind of just circles back into why it's so important to kind of, like you said, use something like a Credit Karma to kind of keep tabs on sort of how things are looking for you. When you look at sort of a business and what a business can do to protect itself, its data, its employees, one of the things I think has been really interesting since you joined the One SEO team and tech became a branch of One SEO is just kind of sort of the knowledge that's been passed down to the employees. We obviously have 100 people out there. Everyone's on a computer. We all have 30 tabs open at all times. We're all sending dozens of emails a day. Just kind of the knowledge to trickle down to say, this is what a phishing attack might look like. This is, something that you should be doing if you ever think you clicked on a scam email or whatever it might be, or just those types of things that I don't think a typical business might really pass that down or might not have somebody to pass that knowledge down. So I guess what I'm talking about is sort of embracing that security mindset into the company culture and kind of how important that aspect is, just even for the lowest of employees, really.
Yeah, I mean, we still firmly believe that in addition to having a great firewall, great security, great antivirus, probably one of the most important things you can have is just education. Making sure that your employees know what to look out for when they see that fake looking email come in. Maybe it's Microsoft, maybe it's not,
right.
Maybe it's eBay, maybe it's not. We get them, our clients probably send us no less than 100 of those a day saying, is this real? Is this legit? We have an eye for it. We can pick it out right away, but we try to then tell our client, this is why it's fake. Put your mouse on top of that link. And if you got an email from Microsoft asking you to reset your password, just hover your mouse on top of the link. And if it takes you to Microsoft.com, it's probably legit. If it takes you to qr68.com/Microsoft,
right.
I'm willing to bet it's probably a fake site. But education and embracing the whole, just accepting that security is not perfect and
right.
being able to accept even more so that human error can occur is really important in any business to make sure that your staff understands what they can do to keep your company protected.
Yeah, I think that's something that's, from my outside perspective has really kind of been something that's been really beneficial and kind of something that I've seen the effect of,
Yep.
So I think that's been great, just everyone kind of being more aware. And it's just, from a business owner perspective, you talk about more speaking to, I guess, sort of the bigger businesses where maybe you might have people working remotely, you might have people traveling, just kind of knowing, little things like how are they connecting to the network? Is it in a secure fashion? Just that kind of role, because those are things that you might not think about. You might not really be paying attention to. You might be granting access to people who could be doing damage or whatever it might be. So I think that kind of having the whereabouts and knowing how people might be connecting to the network, how people might be accessing files for the business or whatever, So I think that's a piece that people don't really consider, but is really, really important as well.
Yeah, I mean, accessing files remotely is going to be constantly evolving. Right now, a big trend is bring your own device, BYOD. So what that means is that a lot of companies are letting employees bring their own iPad to gain remote access, use their own home personal computers to gain access to company resources. Before you do that, you really have to make sure you have a lot of extra steps and procedures in place, and especially security in place, because you don't know what that home user has on their computer that they could push over into your network if you allow them direct access to your files. I mean, just today we had a conversation with one of our clients. One of the board members wanted to give access to one of their friends or colleagues to act as a consultant, and they would essentially have access to the entire server. I said, well, that's great, but what machine are they going to use to have access to the server? Oh, they're going to use their home computer. Well, how do we know that there's antivirus software on that home computer? How do we know that that home computer doesn't have some kind of malware or a keystroke logging software on it? There is no way to tell.
Right.
So we really want to make sure that if our clients are granting remote access, that they grant secure remote access and know what the risks are, and we'll give them all the steps to make sure those risks are nearly 100% eliminated.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not the person that's accessing it necessarily, right? Like they're probably trustworthy. They're probably in there to actually help. It's just something that's completely out of their control. They might not know about. That could be completely
a shared computer with their kids. Their kids are on, and you leave your VPN connection on by accident.
Exactly.
You never know.
So, and then to kind of rope in with that, just the process of like when a new employee signs on, obviously it's a big process. You get them set up with their new equipment, you get them set up with their email address and their network and everything like that. So I guess how important is it from an onboarding perspective when a new employee comes on, making sure that they're all kind of up to speed and got everything going with everybody else? And I guess just the time lag there, as far as when a new employee joins.
For sure. Whenever a new employee joins, we always want to make sure that the new employee has a sufficient amount of access, only the access that they need.
Right.
And Anthony and I were just talking about this before the segment started. I think even more important than having a good onboarding plan is having a great offboarding plan. Because you want to make sure that when that employee is terminated or decides to give notice, you have a plan in place, a procedure that's going to be followed to make sure that that employee has no more access to data, no more access to email, no more access to your company calendar, contacts, resources. I mean, setting up a new employee, if they have access to limited resources for the first few hours of the day, it's not that big of a deal if you give it on. But for once an employee gives notice and quits or gets fired, if they have access to company resources for even 15 minutes longer than they should, that 15 minutes is all they need to make copies of information or send out a nasty email to the entire company. So you always want to make sure you have a plan that can be quickly executed whenever a employee departs. I mean, that's one of the first things that we do with our clients. We make sure that we have a plan for new employees and a plan for employees while they leave.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. And I'm not a business owner, but like just something that I think is probably so overlooked. Just like
all the time.
When you think about an employee that leaves the company, you don't think about it. You think about stopping payroll or whatever it is, but you don't think about hey, did we actually shut that off, or did they have access, or did they grant themselves access to anything? You know what I mean? Like the weird little quirky things that can really come back to harm you. So
always tell your IT company when you are letting someone go. The number of times that a company's come to us and goes, we let so-and-so go 2 weeks ago. No one told you?
Yeah.
No one told us. So you mean they've had access to their email this entire time? Yeah, no one told us to turn off their email. So always make sure you notify us or whoever your IT company is so that we can turn that off right away.
Yeah, and so all these things really kind of speak to each other, and they really all kind of warp together into one big strategy. You mentioned the firewall, you mentioned the education, and kind of all the different factors that come into play. And really, I think the best advice that I think anybody can really give, and that we can certainly give, is to if you're a business owner or you've got employees that access your network or whatever it might be, really just committing to an audit. There's no harm in seeing what could be there. Scott's team or another team, whatever it might be, would come out. They'd be able to take a look. They'd be able to pinpoint issues that might be causing vulnerabilities or lag times or whatever it might be. Just have thick skin about it, because I think that there's times where you're going to be a little surprised at how vulnerable you are, and you get that reaction all the time when you take a look at people's networks and things like that.
For sure. There's sometimes that the customer is surprised as we'll come in there and we'll give them that big green check and go, everything is great.
Right.
We're not afraid to tell you if everything is great, but we're also not afraid to tell you if you have a lot of shortfalls.
Absolutely. So that's the easiest piece of advice that we can really give, is to commit to an audit. There's really no harm in doing so. A lot of people just kind of fear the unknown, and they like to keep business as usual. But the reality is, these types of attacks, these cyber attacks are really on the rise. The amount of vulnerabilities that are out there is really on the rise. We constantly see it in the news. And the other reality is that small to medium-sized businesses really are kind of the main target, it seems like. A lot of these little types of businesses get attacked, and there's really no bounce back from that. And it's unfortunate, but that's really the case. It seems like a lot of times. So.
Yeah, I believe the stat is somewhere right around 80% of small businesses that are hit with ransomware or a major security breach end up going completely out of business.
Right. Yeah, that's just a scary reality, but that's kind of where things are at. So we hope we didn't scare you too much. We hope you didn't see your password on the screen at any point during this episode. But Scott, thank you so much for taking time here today. Yeah, absolutely. We'll have you on before 100 a few more times as well.
I want to be here on 100 as well.
We'll definitely have that going. So everybody have a great weekend. Thank you so much for tuning into episode 60 of Taking Control, and I will see you guys next Thursday.
Take care.